start. So first of all, welcome to all the lovely Year 11 parents who've come out and want to know it's a really busy day for all of you, and thank you very much for coming tonight. We are recording the session so that Border and Daygirl parents who are not able to attend tonight can hear the presentation, which will be uploaded to Sector later. So particularly with Simone's presentation, if there is anything that you want to double check, you'll be able to do that on Sector. I see that Ms. Jennifer Ocean is here tonight, so welcome Jen. And we have Mrs. Simone Souris, our Deputy Principal of Teaching and Learning. I also have my homeroom teachers with me, but I think we'll begin with the Welcome to Country before I introduce them. Oops. As members of the Santa Maria community, we acknowledge the Noongar people, the traditional owners who walked upon and cared for this land for thousands of years. We acknowledge the continued deep spiritual attachment and relationship of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples to this country and commit ourselves to the ongoing journey of reconciliation. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. God of mercy, we pray our school will be filled with love. We pray our learning will be full of truth. We pray our college grounds will be full of joy. We pray our friendships will be full of kindness and understanding. We pray our teachers will be full of wisdom. We pray our community will be full of hope. May we find peace in your love. May we build on your truth. May we live with your joy. May we share your forgiveness and rest in your wisdom each and every day. We ask this in your name. Amen. So, first of all, I'd like to introduce the homeroom teachers. We have Fan Lee from O'Donnell. We have Sarah Ditchburn from O'Reilly. And Paul Morris from Kelly. And Ellie Rose from Delahoyt. Ellie is new to the college this year and she's working in the science department. And Jess Beasley was here a minute ago, but she has gone on to do a mentor presentation in another part of the college. And Lisa Taylor is unable to be here. She's got a 6-month-old baby. Mr. Zakara has just had his first daughter, so he's at home and very excited. And Mr. Cooper was not able to be with us either. So I'm very grateful to the homeroom teachers for all that they do to support our girls, to support me, and of course what they will do in the future to support the girls as they work through with them to Year 12. So please thank our homeroom teachers, and then I'll encourage them to go home after a very busy day. So thank you very much. Okay, so I have just put up a few things on the screen for you to look at. These are some of the key points that I'm responsible for, and it is always a terrific job to be a dean. There's a lot to do with the girls over the year, and it's always a very challenging but very rewarding job. And you can see up there that I will be addressing some of those points, or all of those points, as we go through. So a couple of things there. It is the year of hospitality, and we're very grateful that our homeroom teachers are here to share hospitality with you this evening. The second one I'll talk about in a little bit more detail later on. So I think perhaps with that in mind, what we'll do is we will just move on through the slides because there's a lot to get through tonight. So our mercy value this year is hospitality. And as you can see there, that is our mantra, which is in our mercy values and in the front of the college planner, and one that the girls are well aware of as our focus for this year. And the interesting thing is that there are lots of hospitality installations around the college. There's lots of teacups and pots in foyers, in dean's offices and classrooms. Indeed, there's a lot of teacups and pots to choose from, and all of them reference Catherine McCauley's famous quote, which is, "Be sure you have a comfortable cup of tea for when I'm gone." And since then, of course, the teacup has become the symbol of mercy hospitality. And you can see that Director of Mission has placed an installation over here, and you will probably note that they are around the college. So these are visual reminders of this wonderful mercy value, and we encourage our girls to be inclusive, welcoming, kind-hearted and compassionate in all their interactions with their peers and staff, and of course you, their family. So the next point that we'll move on to is looking at the focus for the college this year in 2019, which is connecting learning to life. This is our academic focus for the year, and you can see some of the quote up there, which encapsulates what we're talking about when we're talking about connecting learning to life. We have a staff conference last Thursday and Friday, and we spent some time exploring the future of work and how best we can support our students to transition to a fast-paced, competitive and ever-evolving workforce. We looked at what the future holds with guest speaker Dr. Katie Rains-Goldie. The topic of her presentation was Future Humans. Dr. Rains-Goldie is a lecturer in Internet Studies at Curtin University, and her presentation opened up a dialogue for staff to further explore ways to prepare our students to be confident and to have the skills and the mindset to take on the challenges for future study and the ever-evolving workforce. So the skills that you can see on the slide are just quite a straightforward snapshot of what's required in this future world of work. But as we discovered at the conference, we can take comfort in the fact that someone has to design the robots that are apparently going to take over our jobs, and that there'll always have to be a human to repair them when, of course, they malfunction, which invariably they will. That's our plan anyway. So, on to service next. Service learning is a significant part of the program at Santa Maria and one that we really value. All Year 10 and 11 students have a service project to complete, as agreed by the Student Service Learning Coordinator, which is Mrs. Elizabeth van der Zanden, between Term 3, Year 10, and at the end of Term 3, Year 11. So it's approximately 16 months. There are two choices: 20 hours of service with a not-for-profit organisation, which is compulsory to meet the college graduation requirements, or 50 hours of service, which makes them eligible to enrol for an endorsed unit. And endorsed units are on their graduation certificate, so that's always a very valuable asset to have. And Liz van der Zanden has given the girls lots of information about this, so they're really ready to go with that. The other component for service is Punmu. I think we've been running the trips to Punmu, which is an Aboriginal mission community, for about 11 years. Miss Olivia Gamble has presented the information to the girls at the year meeting, and the application process has been explained to them in detail. There are two trips this year. The first one departs in week 9, that's Saturday 22nd of June to Saturday the 29th of June, and the second one departs on the 6th of July, which is the start of the holidays. Your girls will have all this information, and Liv gave a fantastic presentation at our year meeting the other day and really inspired the girls. It's a really, really brilliant trip, and many of our girls come back and say it was life-changing. And in fact, some of the Year 12 girls this year have indicated that they are interested in perhaps going back for a second trip, and certainly when they get to uni, contributing more to the Aboriginal communities. Support for your daughter. There is a lot of support for your daughter. These points up on the screen are just some of the ways in which we connect with the girls. Every Sunday I send them a week ahead email, which is the Dean's email. It just highlights things of importance that are coming up at the college for whole school events. I also list some of the particular events for Year 11. I would give them study tips, remind them about various aspects of college life that they need to conform to, like the uniform rules and things like that. And generally also have little bits in there that encourage them to be proactive students and set themselves up and plan, as we say, for a successful year. So I think that the week ahead email usually just gets them to set an agenda. And I strongly encourage you to ask your girls what her agenda is for the week. I'm encouraging them to sit down on Sunday night, look at their whole program for the week, academic, social, faith, sport, whatever it might be, and just have a plan for the week ahead so that there is some consistency in their study and they know what's coming ahead for each day. The catch-up meetings are ones where I do specific academic tracking with them. I can look at their results, I can give them motivation, encouragement, and also help them to refine their study techniques, check their revision books, and generally just make sure that they are on target and being proactive in consulting with their teachers. At Year 11 and 12 level, we're really treating them like young adults. We're trying to prepare them for university where they are definitely on the mark with what they need to know and what they need to learn, and that they're actively seeking out the help to assist them. With the check-ins, they're also welcome to just pop into my office. I've had half a dozen tonight showing me the addresses for the social, which was great. They were all perfect, so that was a pleasure. Absentee policy, if they're away for 3 or more days, I usually try and make a time to meet with them just see what's going on and help them to catch up if they need any assistance. There are a number of people which I call the support team for the Year 11s, and at the very first meeting that we had this year, I encouraged them to get their support team together, which is obviously their subject teachers, their homeroom teacher, myself as dean, family members, it could be an older sibling, it could be a neighbour, anybody who is interested in their progress and is helping them and wanting to support and motivate them. So in the wider team, we've got Melanie from Enrichment, who provides testing and support for students who have extra time requirements, and she manages the SCASA applications for students who have extra learning difficulties as such. The Careers Department with Marianne Hughes as its head oversees the Access Pathway, provides course counselling for students, and is available to meet with students to discuss possible career paths. And a lot of that has been happening over the last few weeks as girls have been determining exactly their courses. There have been a few changes to subjects, and Marianne has been very helpful with the career counselling. Our psychologists Chris and Beth work with our Year 11 students to support their mental health and general well-being. The girls can be referred by staff members if we think that they need some psychological support, or the girls can also self-refer. All they have to do is email either Beth or Chris, who are designated 10, 11 and 12 psychologists, and they will find space to meet with them, talk with them through their problems and assist them with perhaps recharging their energies and refocusing. So there are some great additions to our support team. Our two nurses, Lil and Jodie, are in the boarding house before school starts, and then they spend the college day up at student reception, and they are available to see girls who need them. They then head back to the boarding house at about 3:30 to support the boarders. So they are an excellent addition to the team. They're very much valued by the girls. The Mercy Wellbeing Program, I'm not going to go through all of those points, but they are all wellbeing aspects that we touch on and work with the 10, 11 and 12 students. So it's a progressive program. We're looking mostly to make sure that they've got a healthy lifestyle and that there is balance in their life between all the things that they are involved with at the college, because as you know, it is a very busy college, but it's also a very productive college, and we encourage them to be involved in a wide range of different activities, particularly for the co-curricular pursuits, expanding their horizons. This one often is overlooked by students, but when I come to write the scholarships at the end of Year 12, the universities look for three things. They look for academic excellence, they look for co-curricular pursuits, and particularly for universities like Notre Dame, they look for the faith component as well. Most universities encourage their students these days to have co-curricular pursuits. Our girls are in the box seat because they're used to being involved in service activities, mercy care, and a whole range of activities where they are putting themselves out of their comfort zone and assisting and helping people. So usually when it comes to write the scholarships, I try to encourage them to have as many co-curricular pursuits as possible, but obviously not to the point where they're overloading themselves, but just get a little bit of extra breadth and depth into their studies. The practical approach in PCT, we've already had some sessions where we have looked at getting organised for the year ahead, and the girls have been very positive in responding to this. The feedback from the teachers so far this term has been that they're on track, they're steady, they're focused, they're consistent in their study habits, and they are aware that every test is important. And I think that the tracking of students that we do also helps them with their study strategies and just refining their techniques and methods. And the usual plan is that we just ask them to focus on a 3 to 5% improvement for each assessment. It's a little incremental improvement, but it adds up to quite a lot over the term. They transition to Year 12 at the end of Term 3. There are individual course counselling interviews which are held prior to the students moving into Year 12 to ensure that they are in the right course and enjoying their learning experience. I'm just going to show you a video that Jane Carmignani, our school psychologist, has put together. It's about sleep. She's got some very wise and evidence-based advice for students and parents about the importance of a good night's sleep. showed this to the year 11s at a recent year meeting, and there was a lively response. They all compared sleep times after the video. Some of it was positive and some of it wasn't. So hopefully this video will show now, and you can discuss it with the girls when you get home because they have actually seen it. So I hope this is useful and important information for you.
So lack of sleep on our young people these days can have a huge impact. We all know what it feels like to have a lack of sleep. So for our teenagers, we're looking at things like reduced attention, reduced focus. They have reduced emotional regulation. So when we get our moodiness and stuff, that can be really related to how much sleep they're getting. We can have impact on their aggression, their anger, their temper. We can see these things with lack of sleep. Cognitive skills. We also know there's a link between depression and anxiety with lack of sleep. So there's so many areas that are impacting when our girls aren't getting the sleep that they need. So research has shown us that our young people need about 9.25 hours sleep for optimal performance. And when we measure optimal performance, we're talking about things like their attention, focus, their emotional regulation, their cognitive skills, and their reaction times. What we also know is less than 10% of our young people are getting that 9.25 hours, and about 10% are existing on 5 hours sleep a night. So that is a huge difference in what we know they need. Sometimes we think that we can make up for our sleep when we're not as busy by having really big sleep-ins on the weekend, and we're a little bit reluctant to wake our sleeping teenager when we know they've been so tired. What we also know though is when they get out of like a regular sleep pattern and they're adding lots of hours onto the weekend, this throws off their circadian rhythms even more, and sleep deprivation can be a greater problem. Number one, technology. Since young people have been using more technology, doing their homework on their laptops, the sleep times have pushed out even further than they used to. We also know that technology emits a blue light. This blue light suppresses melatonin, which is the hormone that brings on sleepiness in young people. Now, this hormone is already changing for our teenagers, so their natural sleepy time is already getting later. So then when we introduce technology on top of that, we're looking at sleep-deprived teenagers. If we can reduce technology use at the end of the day by 1 hour, so 1 hour before bedtime, technology-free, we know that their sleep patterns will improve and that sleep deprivation will improve. Number two, routine and organisation. We know that sleep patterns improve when we have a routine around our sleep. We want as much as possible consistent bedtimes and consistent awake times, and this also means over the weekend. We do have a tendency to let our kids sleep in on the weekend when they've had really busy weeks and they've been overtired, but what we do know is this puts out their sleep rhythms even more. So if we can get consistency across the week, that is how we get that optimal sleep time for our young people. We also want to have routines around going to bed. So a wind down period where they maybe read a book or they maybe have a chat with you or have a nice warm shower, and try and keep that consistent as well. We tend to sometimes let our kids do their study on their beds. We also know that when we keep beds just for sleeping, this can improve sleep for our young people as well. Try and create an area where they can do their study that isn't in their bed or even in their bedroom. Having a separate area altogether can be really helpful. Number three, make sleep a priority. We know that a lot of this information won't be new to you, but what we really want to do is focus on making sleep a priority for our girls. One way we can do this is by how we prioritise our sleep. So making sure that our sleep patterns are healthy, making sure that our technology use has limitations. We know that parents can put in boundaries and be effective. Research has shown us that. So if you can sit down with your girls and talk to them about why sleep is important, why you want to make it a priority, and how you can help them to make that sleep pattern happen, that can be a really effective way. There will be resistance, we know that, but if we can stick to it and be as consistent as possible, we'll start to see improvements in the way that they approach their sleep. We have developed a bit of a culture where we really value activity and busyness over things like sleep. That's okay, we do value that activity, but we also want to talk to them about the value of sleep and how sleep can actually make them perform better in all those activities that they want to do.
Okay, well I hope you found that really useful, and girls seem to be quite shocked at knowing how to call hours is the amount they should be sleeping. I did have a bit of a go, but I was working late one night, and the last email I got actually came at 10 to 14 in the morning or something in the evening. Most of the name of it, obviously, but as I go home and check the emails, you can see who it was. But I got a bit of a shock that somebody was up and responding to an email at that time. Email is not every other day, but they obviously got to it then. So I know they're staying up very late, and I'm hoping they're staying, but if they're not, it's important that, as Jane has said earlier, they do have balance in their lives. So we expect about 3 hours study in regards to meditation. The digital footprint, or digital shadow as it's called, is really important. Jane has just talked to you about technology, and we know that this is a really significant point for the girls. And I have been encouraging them for the last couple of years to use their social media in a responsible way. You can see some of the suggestions that I have put up there for the girls, and they know what they should be doing. Thinking before they post and making good decisions. Show you what they have on their profiles. I'm pretty sure not many of them will do that, but you can always ask them. You never know what you might get. Discuss how photos and texts could impact on them. Discuss with their friends what material can be shared without just sharing it without permission. That's a very important point there. Girls seem to forget that. Some girls don't want their photos shared and they don't want their photos taken. So it's respect. Ask your daughter to do a Google search on themselves. You can do one on yourself when you get home, and hopefully you'll be pleasantly surprised and not horrified. It's amazing what a Google search shows up if you have been actively using social media. What values are demonstrated in their profiles? When and where is your daughter using social media, which is also another really important point. And finally, curating their online presence, which simply means making sure that their online social media posts and comments are respectable. Very often universities Google students if they're looking at giving scholarships, and also for university applications as well, and certainly the workplace do when people go for job interviews. They've already done the Google search and they've already got an image of the person they're going to interview, and quite often students have received letters to say that they will not get an interview, and of course further investigations have shown that their social media postings are not what the company wants. So even as adults we know we should be very careful what we post online, but I'm encouraging the girls to be proactive in this, and it also avoids any bullying or any unpleasantness between students. As you're aware, a lot of that sort of thing goes on at home and stays out of the college. It's only when it does come into the college that we need to deal with it. And quite frankly, the girls have got a lot more positive things on their plate than dealing with inappropriate social texting and messaging. So the message is strong. Ask them to curate their online presence because it will work in their favour always. The key social events, we've got the Year 11 Social coming up on the 30th of March at the Tompkins-on-Swan venue. The girls are pretty excited. This is their first chance to actually invite a partner to a social. It's a very casual affair. It's a neat casual dress. They've had a clear indication of what's appropriate for the dresses for both the girls and the boys. The girls have designed their tickets. They've had a hand in the decorations, and they're really looking forward to this function. So I think the letter will come out this week with more information for you, but I think most of you would have already seen the partner declaration form with some information on the back of that one. So the rest of the information will come out this week. Term 2, that's the Year 11 retreat. This is a compulsory event, and we strongly encourage all girls to attend. It's from 9 in the morning until 7 p.m. in the evening. I've been involved in the last 2 Year 11 retreats, and they're really worthwhile, valuable events for the girls to attend. They're very meditative, calming, and interesting, with lots of different things discussed and ideas shared. The father-daughter dinner is on the 26th of August at the Fremantle Sailing Club from 7 to 10 p.m. A little bit close to the time. There'll be plenty of information about that as well. And the news, which was very well received by the girls, is that the college ball will be next year on the first Saturday back at school in 2020. And I can see some smiling mums. I'm seriously hoping that you are all very happy with that. Yeah, thank you so much. Good, because that's all booked and organised, and we're very excited about that. Okay, last little bit from from me, college communications. These are the ways that we communicate with you. Lots of different ways. I'm sure that you have the app and you're aware of the college website. They're terrific resources for you to check all the time to see what's happening at the college. Also for the girls to get involved as well. There's parent information handbook, which I think you will have access to in digital form, if not hard copy. The news blogs which come out every week, which are really exciting and showcase what events have been happening at the college during the day and the week. So each week Karen Bibberton puts out that information to staff in newsletter format and video format, and you can see the wide variety of really exciting activities that the girls are involved in from years 5 through to year 12. Okay, that's it for me. You know that you're most welcome to contact me anytime if you need to speak with me, or ring me, or come in and meet with me. If you want me to speak with your daughter, I'm quite happy to do that, but I do a lot of that anyway. But if you particularly have a concern, you need to let me know about her, because sometimes I am not fully aware of what's happening perhaps in a student's life out of school, which may have an impact on her studies at home. But you are very welcome to contact me anytime. And also homeroom teachers really are your first port of call if you have some concern about your daughter. So I strongly encourage you, as part of our college parent partnership, that you are involved with us. We really value and respect you and welcome your relationship with the college, and I hope that we move forward positively as we take our girls through to year 12. So I'll hand over to Mrs. Simons, who is now.
Thank you and good evening everybody. A lot of you I have already met, either through meeting with you at our course counselling interviews or at other parent functions, so it's great to see some new faces here as well that I haven't met, so please do feel free to come up and introduce yourself to me later on in the evening, and I'd love to meet you. Often I know your daughters quite well, but I haven't put the face of the parents with the daughters, so it'd be lovely to meet some of you afterwards. So I'm going to be talking tonight about some of the academic matters, and I know there's a few faces around here who I've seen already at some of these parent information nights this year through one of the other year groups perhaps. So I'm hoping that it's not too boring if you've heard some of this before. I hope it's just going to consolidate your understanding, and maybe there will be something there that you've missed earlier, and it might add to your understanding as well. So my role is Deputy Principal of Teaching and Learning, so predominantly I deal with the academic matters of the college, really working closely with the heads of learning, the teaching staff and the students, as well as the deans, on helping our girls to maximise their academic potential. And I never think that academic potential sits separately to their pastoral care, because pastoral care is really the first thing that is important about your daughters, making sure that they are happy, that they're feeling comfortable, they're feeling that they belong, and they feel that they're in a place where they can take risks academically, so that then they can grow. So certainly working with Claire and working on the academic tracking of the girls is something that we take a lot of care with, because we want to make sure that not only are they in a good place academically, but pastorally is the foremost concern that we have. Now, I'm just going to go through a little bit of a walkthrough of some of the results of last year's WACE achievements. So we were really pleased last year with our average ATAR. I don't know if you followed some of this data in the paper. It was published in December and in January. But we had an average ATAR of 90.1 for our students last year. So these are our WACE students who did an ATAR pathway. And that meant that we were ranked 7th in the state based on that average ATAR. So we're very, very proud of that, obviously. And it obviously reflects the hard work that goes in, not just by our students who perhaps achieved an ATAR above 90, as you can see there, but all of the girls who really worked hard to push their marks up throughout the year. And one of the things that we do to try to help the students is by about the middle to end of this year, we'll be looking at their predicted ATAR scores for the end of year 12 and seeing where there are areas where they maybe need to work a little harder or a little smarter. Maybe they need to have a look at what course combinations they've got and how we can help them to improve if they need to. Just those few percentage that can all add up. So when we say an ATAR of 90, that doesn't mean they got 90% in all their exams. It means that they are better in their marks than 90%, than 90% of the cohort. So they're actually in that top 10%. So that is, a real achievement. But we certainly have a lot of girls in that 80 to 90 band as well. And for many courses at university, 80 is the minimum requirement. So this is another part of the discussion that we have with the girls is, what is the minimum ATAR that is required for the course that they want to enter. And we had 2 girls who actually achieved an ATAR of 99.75 last year, which was a great achievement. And to have 2 of those, they were our ducks and our runner-up ducks, luckily, that we were really proud of that as well. And certainly proud that we were the highest ATAR school in the Catholic sector. We had a number of courses that were in the top 15% of students in the state, so you may have seen some of this data already, but certainly some great results there. AIT is always something that I feel very proud of, not that I teach it, of course, but I feel really proud because we're helping our girls to perhaps perform at this very high level in an area that normally would be a male-dominated course, for AIT, Applied Information and Technology. And last year we actually had the 3rd year in a row that a Santa Maria student was the top student in the state in AIT. So that's a fantastic achievement. And a real mix of different courses. Hopefully you can see that around there. Really, a real mix of courses. So you can see that, girls are achieving highly in a lot of different types of courses as well. So it's not that we're a specialist maths school, science school, English school, maths school, but a whole range of different courses there. So there's great opportunities. A number of students achieved subject awards, general exhibitions, which is the top 50 students in our WACE exams, certificates of excellence in a number of courses, and 32 certificates of distinction. So those awards are based on, they're very competitive to achieve one of those awards, and some of them are also based on the girls' achievements over both year 11 and 12 as well. So it does actually count that the girls have some great results in year 11 because they can certainly go towards certificates of distinction and other accolades when they graduate. And of course our Access girls, they absolutely had a fantastic year last year. You'll see there we had 22 girls achieve a certificate 4. 7 of those in business and 15 in education support. And we also had a number of girls achieve certificates 2 and 3. Many of those certificate 2 were done, some of those, were done also in year 10 and then into year 11 with certificate 3. The certificate 4 courses are those that are useful for girls who want to complete an access pathway but then get entry into university. And certainly, while it just says business and education support with certificate 4, we actually have, I think I've got this on the next slide, we've actually got 4 courses that are available at certificate 4 level. This is just a snapshot of the different certificate courses that some girls are doing or have done in the past. And you'll see the bolded ones, if you can see that. Allied Health Services, Community Services, Business and Education Support are all offered at certificate 4 level. And each year, our Head of Careers, Marianne Hughes, does a wonderful job of finding out what the girls want to do. Allied Health Services is a new one this year, and I know that some of your daughters have begun this course, which is basically a preliminary course to get into nursing. So we're listening to the girls and making sure that if there's something that takes their interest, that we can cater for that. So some years we might not have anyone doing events or floristry, but the next year we might have a bunch of girls who are keen on that. So we'd like to, just basically let it be known that if there's not something there that appeals to a student, we're happy to look around and see what it is that they would like to do and see what we can do to try and make that possible. So we certainly have a great range of certificate courses on offer, and I know that some of your girls have already begun those this year, which is very exciting. Something you might not be familiar with is the Endorsed Programs. Now these programs are basically credit that's given to students based on an alternative course that is off the curriculum. So it's not necessarily something they do in class, but it can count towards their points for their WACE certificate, so for graduation. So some girls may be doing an elite sports program, or they may be in a leadership position in the college. They can use their hours and their I suppose, their skills and their demonstrated abilities to count towards their WACE. So you might have a daughter who is doing the Access program and she goes off and does workplace learning. That workplace learning is an endorsed program. So there's a minimum number of hours that need to be completed, and also a logbook and some records that need to be recorded as evidence of completion. But you'll see there's a lot of things there that a lot of our girls are doing that they can count towards their WACE. This is a kind of a hidden secret, because I know there's a lot of schools around WA, around Perth, that aren't using these opportunities that are offered as part of their normal coursework anyway, or their normal programs. For example, community service. So girls are doing, a large number of hours of community service, and I know a lot of girls really love that. It's a passion of theirs, and they just really enjoy going out and doing service above and beyond what they have to do normally in our service program. This can count. If they've gone on a college tour, so they've gone on a drama tour or an art tour, gone to NASA or something like that, they can count that as an endorsed program. So there's a lot of different things there that the girls can use. Bronze medallion, recreational skipper's ticket, which they do in outdoor ed, and other different pursuits that they may have. So this is another great thing. So you see there from the stats on the top there, last year we had 310 endorsed programs registered and accredited through SCASA. So this is a great win too. So if your girls are doing something different or something extra, get them to keep records of it. Now, talk about the different academic pathways that are on offer. I know that there's probably been a lot of discussion in your homes about these already, but just wanted to clarify, because I know sometimes there's a little bit of murkiness around the difference between the programs and what that might mean for the girls. So if a student chooses to do the ATAR pathway, that is aimed at obtaining direct entry into university. The assessment structure is that 50% of their mark for that course comes from the school assessments that we complete, and that includes our school exams, and then 50% of the mark comes from the WACE exams. Students obtain an ATAR, tertiary ranking, based on their 4 best scores. So if they're doing 5 or 6 ATAR, it's the top 4 scores. And for your information, about 78.5% of our students last year completed the ATAR pathway, which meant 21.5% completed the Access pathway, which is a healthy number, I think. What you'll see there for the Access pathway, the way that this is different is that girls who complete the Access pathway, and specifically Certificate 4 through this, often will have an option for alternate entry into university. Now this may require them to do an enabling course, a transition program for up to 14 weeks before they commence their studies at university, and also they need to demonstrate that they have English competency as well. Many girls use a portfolio to enter university through this sort of pathway, so it may be going into a course such as design or something that is very creative and hands-on, but it certainly is a pathway that is on offer. May take a little bit longer, but sometimes the girls actually find that the benefits they've gained from doing the Access pathway are so beneficial that they may not have ended up even being able to apply through a portfolio entry to university if they didn't do an Access pathway. And one of the beautiful things about the Access pathway is the certificate courses and the workplaces that the girls do. So they get to go out during the exam period and do workplace learning, which is such a benefit. I'm sure many of you remember your days as a Year 10 student going off on work experience, which absolutely was nerve-wracking and horrible sometimes, but it really helped consolidate what you thought you might like to do and what you knew after that you never ever wanted to do again in your life. So this workplace learning is a fabulous thing that our Access students get opportunities to do, to really go out and test and see what it is that they're passionate about and see what it's like to be getting up every day and going to work, and maybe to go out and see working in an adult sort of industry. Not an adult industry. Edit that from the recording, please. Working with an adult staff, and having to engage with people and work at that level. So it's very different to being a student in the classroom, sitting down and waiting for someone to tell you what to do and how to do it, etc. But you actually have that experience of being a grown-up, and that's a great experience for our girls to really find out what it's like out there. One of the benefits for the Access program is having 100% of their assessments school-based. So if your daughter perhaps suffers from, some anxiety around exams and tests, or perhaps she really does well in creative and hands-on pieces of work, this is a fantastic way to demonstrate her abilities. So there are no exams, but there is just one externally set task which happens in Year 12 where across the state, students doing the same course, a general course, will do an externally set task which then gets marked by our staff, as well as some samples going off to SCARS to be marked, to make sure that teachers around the state are marking fairly, and to make sure that we're all basically keeping everything on the same page, because otherwise, without an externally set task, there may not be opportunity for schools to be looking at how their marks compare to other schools. So that's something that's come in the last couple of years, but it's a small part of the assessment component. And as I said earlier, 21.5% of our cohort last year did access, and we have, again, healthy numbers in our program this year. One of the other things that the girls do through their access course is that they do a careers and enterprise general course, which really helps upskill them before going into the workplace. So there's a lot of benefits to be gained there. So some girls are still deciding whether they're going to stay with ATAR or whether they're going to move to Access. And some girls have actually made that call in the last couple of weeks. So if you're discussing with your daughter whether she's in the right pathway, just have a think about these things. Maybe have a discussion with her. The number of subjects you have to do in ATAR and Access are the same, except there is a workplace learning day that is often part of the certificate courses. So they would be out one day a week if they're doing Access, which can make it a little bit difficult if they're trying to manage some ATAR courses with an Access pathway. So they need to be aware of that, but either way, they'll still need to do the same number of courses, both lists A and B. They do need to do an English course, and they do need to do a religion and life course, whether that be ATAR or general. The ATAR assessments, as I said, are exam and test-based. Our Access assessments are more about research projects and portfolios. ATAR girls have exam weeks in Term 2 and Term 4, whereas our Access girls go on to workplace learning, and I know some of them have already found their workplace learning placements already for next term, and are feeling very excited about that. ATAR and Access pathway, all the courses done, ATAR or general, do go towards the WACE graduation certificate, so they'll all get that when they complete their coursework. If your daughter's still thinking about possibly changing pathways, or maybe she's not thinking about that, that's absolutely fine. But just to be aware, there are opportunities if there's any need to have a discussion about that later this year and also before next year's coursework starts. So this term until the end of week 5, which is this week, following the semester 1 exams in term 2. So students generally do Unit 1 and 2 in Year 11 and Units 3 and 4 in Year 12. And if they decide that they don't want to do CFC ATAR after their first set of exams, but they want to do CFC General, they can actually change into that. Or they may want to decide, I don't want to do CFC ATAR anymore, I want to do Geography ATAR. Or maybe they want to do something where they're going to mix things up a bit and just move into a different, just a course. They don't have to change their whole pathway. That's absolutely possible too. So there will be some discussion about that following the semester 1 exams. Claire and I will be tracking the girls, seeing how they've performed, and certainly by all means, if you have some concerns, please do contact us as well, because you might be seeing things going on at home where your daughters might be struggling a bit and might need not necessarily pathway change, but maybe some support from us and some extra support from the subject teachers as well. And then, of course, in Term 4, we start our Year 12 courses after the exams at the beginning of Term 4. So if your daughter then decides, I think I might look at doing an Access pathway instead, that's certainly a possibility again. It may have slight restrictions on which courses or which certificates she can do, but she should be able to still make some changes if she decides to. And as Claire mentioned earlier, the course counselling will begin in week 3 of Term 4. So just reviewing the Year 11 results, all of your daughters will have an interview. So we will meet with all of them just to make sure that they're on the right pathway. We'll have a team of course counsellors, a little bit like we did as they moved in from Year 10 into Year 11, and just see how things are tracking, make sure there's any concerns that we can address those with them. Now, if your daughter is doing an ATAR pathway, there's just a few explanations, I thought I should mention to you now, because sometimes this doesn't become evident until later on in the year, when they then decide, well, if I wanted to drop a subject in Year 12, what are my options? So these are all the options. If your daughter's doing 6 ATAR, including ATAR revision this year, she can go along and continue that into Year 12 next year, so nothing changes. She might even change into a different ATAR course at the beginning of next year. So, for example, some students may choose to go from math methods into maths applications, or from literature into English, or vice versa, and that's quite okay, provided she does that at the beginning of her Year 12 coursework. If your daughter's studying 6 ATAR subjects, including ATAR religion, she could drop one subject, one ATAR subject, so that she's then doing 5 ATAR subjects, still with that ATAR RE, and have one private study lesson. If your daughter this year is doing 5 ATAR subjects, including ATAR RE and 1 general, then she could possibly drop the 1 general and do 5 ATAR subjects, including RE, and have a private study in Year 12 as well. Or if she's doing 5 ATAR subjects this year plus general RE, she'll need to retain those 5 courses plus general RE next year. So there won't be an opportunity to drop one subject for a private study. So just making sure everyone understands that, because some girls may feel that if they're doing 5 ATAR and general RE, that they may be able to drop another course next year. That would only mean 4 ATAR courses, and that is not something that we do promote, because we feel that really ideally we'd have all our girls doing 6 ATAR subjects, but if they want to do 5, that's fine. Doing 4 is risky, because then they only have 4 to count for their ATAR score, and of course if one goes pear-shaped, then they don't have anywhere to go, and we wouldn't want that to be the case. So just if you can be aware of that. If you have any concerns, or if you want to see this again, please do have a look. This PowerPoint will be up on Sector Engage in the next couple of days, so please feel free to bring this slide up and have a chat with your daughters again, and just make sure that you understand it, they understand where things are at for them. Okay, so the WACE and graduation requirements. This is the graduation that comes from SCASA, from our Secondary Curriculum Standards Authority. And this is what we call, the graduation. Although, of course, we have a graduation ceremony down in our hall, fabulous night at the end of the year for all of our Year 12 students, and we provide them with our own graduation certificate, so every student will get to come to our graduation. We hope that every student will be able to achieve WACE graduation as well. So to get a WACE, students need to complete 20 units over Year 11 and 12. There has to be a minimum of 10 of those units studied in Year 12. So students can't just do 4 courses in Year 12. So when I say a course, that's 2 units. They have to have a minimum of 5. Some girls will do 6 subjects in Year 12 too, so that gives them a little bit of wriggle room. But generally, 6 subjects in Year 11, giving us 12 units, and then in Year 12, 5 or 6 subjects, giving another 12, or if they're just doing 5 subjects, that's another 10. So they're easily going to meet that requirement of doing 20 units the way that we structure our courses at Santa Maria. They do need to receive a minimum of 14 C grades between Year 11 and 12. So they do need to make sure that they're ticking those boxes. So it's not about no D grades, okay, but minimum C in 14, and obviously we'd love better. I'm sure you would too. Now, the breadth of study means that students have to do a List A and a List B. So List A is our humanities, English courses. List B is our math, science kind of courses, just making sure there is some breadth there. So students will all do, English, which is their List A, so that's all sorted, and they're all doing RE, so that's all sorted. But we need to make sure they're all doing a List B as well. And that may be general essentials maths. It could be a science. It could be some other courses that are offered, such as food science, technology, as a general course as well, as long as they have one List B. Also, English competence for a WACE. So that means OLNA or NAPLAN pass. And in terms of OLNA, of course, we've had a number of girls sit their OLNA writing today, and over the next few days, next few weeks, we'll be doing numeracy and reading as well. So that needs a pass by the end of Year 12. So if your daughter is doing OLNA in Year 10, she'll have 2 opportunities to pass the OLNA. If she is unable to pass in Year 10, she'll have 2 more opportunities in Year 11 and 2 more in Year 12. And before we get to that end of things, we will definitely be having some interventions to support and make sure your daughters are in the best possible place for passing the honour as well. So if we get to that point, then please rest assured there'll be plenty of support on offer. And of course, service learning is one of our requirements for graduation as well. So making sure that all of our students are completing service learning, and that's not just actually going out and physically being there, but also writing up the report and submitting their essay as evidence that that is completed. And that's also again an endorsed program. So that's the pretty purple and white certificate that TISC generate in January, the WACE certificate. And then, I'll talk about the WACE certificate in just a moment. Will I do that now? No, I'll do it. I'll talk about just a little bit about scaling and moderation, because this is the million-dollar question that everybody asks. Everybody would like the simple answer, but unfortunately there is no simple answer to scaling and moderation. So it's not a case of of a course being scaled the same amount for every student, because there's so many variables here. So some of the variables to think about, when you think about a student at our school doing English and a student at another school doing English, is that they've got slightly different programs, even though we're using the same syllabus and curriculum, different teachers, different markers, and different assessments as well. So there will be a lot of variation between those students, just because they go to different schools and have a different environment in terms of teachers and markers. But also we have students who are doing different courses. So a student who's doing English in this school compared to doing literature in another school as well, or even in our own school, student doing English, student doing literature. So there's that variation as well. Some courses are more cognitively challenging than others, so therefore these also need to be compared, because from year to year, universities want to know that a student who has an ATAR of 85 this year is comparably the same ability to a student from last year and the year before that, and next year as well. 85 should mean 85 regardless of what when you went through and got your ATAR, ideally. Also, every year there's a different exam. So one year, and you read about it in the newspaper, there's a furore because the physics exam was so hard this year, or perhaps there was something else about that exam that made it unique that year. So a little bit hard to compare apples and oranges from one year to the next with different exams. So this is why the scaling moderation process comes into play, to make sure that there's comparable scores and rankings every year across WA. So there's a three-step process. I'm not going to go into this in great detail tonight, but there's certainly a lot of resources on the SCARSA website and on the TISC website. TISC is the Tertiary Institutions Services Centre, which has a great website, lots and lots of information, and it tells you about the scaling and moderation process. I don't think you should spend a lot of time on that because it's quite a dry document, but it's very interesting if you want to get to sleep early tonight. School results. So the school results need to be moderated. So we need to know that the marks that we are giving, Santa Maria College are giving their students for an A grade or a B grade or whatever it might be, are comparable to a different school. So that we need to say, are our school results really reflective of where our students are at? Are we giving easy marks or are we marking too hard? So the moderation process is the first step where SCARSA will compare the marks that we submit for our students to how they go in their WACE exams. So they go, Santa Maria, you gave the student 75 and they only got 48 in their exam. I think something's wrong, especially if it's happening for a number of students. Might be the other way as well, it does happen as well, where we might give our students 65 and then in their exam, on average, it's around 75. And they go, well, Santa Maria, you're marking a little hard. We're actually going to give your students a few more marks because you're way too hard on them. So that's the moderation process. Then, of course, the exam results are standardised so that from one year to the next, we know that the maths applications exam is equally as challenging as the previous year, or not too difficult, not too hard, just in that sweet spot. So this is the standardisation process from one year to the next in the same course, and the final process is scaling of courses. So, as I said before, some courses are more cognitively challenging than others. So to make sure that a student who's doing math specialist is compared favourably with a student who's doing math methods, who's then looked at their marks a little bit differently to the maths application course course because they are different levels of maths skills that are required there. So this is the 3-step process that I'm sure you're really excited about tonight. But it is, when people say to me, does this course get scaled, or how is this course scaled? Is it up or down? I said, it depends. Because your daughter, it's about where she performs in reference to her usual performance and how the school mark we've given, in reference to other students around the state who are doing the same course, and of course, you know, from one course to another, if they're doing a harder course here and they're getting a 65, that will be looked at favourably compared to someone who's doing a not so difficult course and they get 75. They might scale that mark up. Okay, so it's a long answer to a short question. I apologise. So it depends. One little secret too is that, of course, if students are doing a certain course, they may get a 10% bonus added to their ATAR or to their TEA, as we call it. So if they're doing language, math methods, or math specialist, the girls will get a 10% bonus added to their score for that course, regardless of whether it's in their top 4 or not. So if they are getting this example here, we've got a student doing Italian and math methods, they get an extra 6.7 plus 7 added on to their TEA, which would normally be around 275. So they're getting that additional, those bonus marks, and they will still get that even if that Italian or math methods specialist aren't in their top 4. So it can actually be beneficial for students to do these courses, even if they may not get as high a mark as they might perhaps, for example, in maths applications, because they will get a bonus and they'll often get scaled up as well. So, you know, it's not always just a simple thing of, you know, you do an easy course and you'll get a better mark, because it's not actually always the case. So this tertiary entrance aggregate is worked out based on the top 4 marks. So if you add it up, what have we got there? We've got 2 67s, a 70 and a 72. So add those up plus your bonus, and that will give you your tertiary entrance aggregate, and that score is how we work out the ATAR. So this student who had received 288.7 as their TEA ends up with an ATAR of 93. Now, if that student didn't do Italian and math methods, they would have been around 275. They probably would have got an ATAR around 90. So they've gone up to 93 by having those bonus marks applied. And as I said a bit earlier, Claire and I will have a look with your girls later in the year, and they can actually do this themselves online. There's on TISC, they've got an ATAR predictor, and they can look at their average scores. So what's interesting is if you look at a student who's getting around 59% as their average for their top 4 courses, they'll get an ATAR of around 70. And 70 is the minimum ATAR to get into Notre Dame University, but most universities require 80. So if they're getting around 60% in their top 4 ATAR courses, they're probably not going to get a competitive ATAR for most universities. However, if they can push those marks up to around 66, they're going to get an ATAR of 85, which is quite a lot more favourable. So by pushing their average up to 66 instead of 60, that's going to have a big impact on their ATARs. This is why those small incremental improvements can make such a difference in the end. This is the WACE that I was mentioning before. So this is another purple certificate that they get in January of 2020. Seems a long way away right now. So the WACE is the West Australian Statement of Student Achievement, and this is what will state whether they've achieved their WACE, whether they've got literacy and numeracy standards met, and also all of the courses that they did in Year 11 and 12. So this document can be quite useful for job applications and certainly for university entrance, very important. And it will show all of their courses over the 2 years, including general as well as ATAR. And then the back of that will have their achievement of VET certificates, if they've done a VET certificate, any endorsed programs they may have done, and their community service hours as well. So it's got all of the data and all the results that they've achieved over their secondary, or over their Year 11 and 12 coursework. And again, a very valuable document. So that will also be available in January 2020 for your daughters. So just briefly, university requirements. I know it seems a long way away right now, but obviously for most universities, 4 down the bottom there, a WACE is important. A competence in English. Now this isn't the honour that I was talking about before. This is different for university entrance. Students have to have a scaled score of 50% or better. That doesn't mean a score that we give them of 50% or better. That means scaled. So after the exam process, after the scaling and moderation process. So some girls can miss out on university direct entry if their scale score is below 50, because that is a big focus of the universities, that literacy. However, it is possible to then set a literacy exam to enter some of the universities if they're not far off that, and some universities will have a little bit of wriggle room on that as well. So if they're 49.5, they're going to probably accept that, okay? But it is one of the reasons why we do put a big focus on literacy, and certainly in ATAR English classes, there is support available for girls who are struggling in that. So it is something that we need everyone to be aware of, and if there's any concerns, we'll contact you. Obviously, they need an ATAR, and if there's any prerequisite or recommended subjects, they do need to have a pass in those, not just to study them, but actually pass them. And I've heard from SCARSA recently that some of the universities are tightening up on their prerequisite courses, so they're starting to say not that it's recommended, but it's actually required, and certainly in the field of maths and science, this is starting to be the case. So there'll be more information come through that, and I don't think it will probably affect your daughters because they've made their choices based on the current information, but down the track, if you've got younger daughters, then prerequisite course is going to be very important. Notre Dame, slightly different model for uni entry. So just a C or better, so that is a school-based C grade that your daughter would need to enter to apply for Notre Dame. A minimum ATAR of 70, but of course a lot of the courses are very competitive down there. So this isn't all courses. There's a lot of the medicine, law, physiotherapy, etc. that have much higher ATAR minimums than this, but that's just something to be aware of. The entry application is slightly different. It's a written application rather than just an ATAR mark and put it in on TISC website. They often look at personal statement and a reference from the school, as well as the student sitting an interview. So there's a great, I suppose, I'd like to say a more humanistic way of selecting their students down at Notre Dame, and that certainly does cater well for our students at Santa Maria. And as Claire mentioned earlier, with our focus on faith and on community service, it stands our girls in really good stead. And last year we actually had 28 students get early offers to Notre Dame. So before they even sat their WACE, they had put in an application for early offer, and they had been guaranteed a place in a course of their choice. We had girls in physiotherapy, I think there's about 9 of them, into medicine, into law, in commerce, that already knew before they sat their WACE that they had a university position already waiting for them. They didn't have to accept it if they didn't want to. They still did their prerequisites on TISC website as normal, and they then could choose as things came through and offers came through. But that's a fabulous thing that is available to a lot of our students, and they get that not because they're taking an easy route, but because the university acknowledges that the graduates that certain schools are putting out, and certainly the quality of these applications with their interviews and their personal applications is such a high quality. They want to get our students in before the other universities snap them up. So let's get back to what we're doing, how we can help your daughters get the best results, reach their academic potential. And this is for all of our students, Access and ATAR, and basically really hoping that whatever your daughter's pathway is, that she gets the maximum success possible for her. Because whether university is her pathway or not, it doesn't have to be immediate after she leaves Santa Maria. It can be after 1 year, 2 years, a gap year, working. Some students, as you would know, start one university degree and then decide after a year that's not their thing. Maybe they need a little bit longer to actually decide, work out what is their thing going to be. So, if your daughter is having some struggles, the subject teacher is the first person to contact, either that be yourself or, preferably, your daughter approaching the teacher for some assistance and saying, can I please have some help? I'm struggling with this. Can I please see you at lunchtime before school? Something like that. Obviously, during class is difficult sometimes because we've got large classes perhaps, or perhaps some of the girls feel a bit anxious, a bit embarrassed about asking that help in class. All they need to do is send an email to their teacher and set up a time, and teachers can be available before school down in the plaza, or available to help even a small bunch of students if there's a group who also needing some extra support. So subject teachers are the first port of call. There is maths help on Tuesday mornings, so if your daughter is having trouble with some particular maths homework or needs help with something, there's about 3 teachers who are there to assist, and this is students from all different year levels who go in and ask for assistance on that. The tutoring and mentoring program is an initiative from the Year 12 students mentoring Year 11 students. So if your daughter is maybe doing PLS and having some troubles or wants to know what's the best way to answer a question, even if she's doing very well but wants to be better, the girls who have done PLS in Year 11 before and are now doing it in Year 12, they can often share some insights and some wisdom that you may not be able to share, that even the teachers sometimes haven't looked at it from the students' perspective. The students can share what they've learnt, how they're working on different questions, and perhaps even give some samples of some good exemplars. So that is available by the Year 11s signing up. There was a link on the notices the other day that they basically sign up, and then we try to match up the Year 11s and the Year 12s to work in a small group to work on a particular subject, so at a time that suits them. We understand that the girls are very, very busy, the 11s and the 12s, so we try to be very flexible. Obviously, academic tracking by the Dean, so Claire and I will both be looking at the girls periodically, and we have regular meetings to check how things are going by looking on sector, and I'm sure you'll be looking on sector as well. There's an elevated exam preparation program that runs from Year 10 into Year 12, so that's something that continues to occur. And there's also a lot of study skills that are discussed through that as well. And there's external revision seminars that are promoted through the notices or on the academic notice board as well. So regardless of whether your daughter is doing HR or an access pathway, there are a lot of opportunities for them to look at getting the best out of themselves. But we really like to highlight that this is the opportunity for your girls to become very proactive in doing this and become independent, because that will help them to prepare them for the world beyond Santa Maria. If you're wondering how your daughter is going, certainly you can have a look on Sector Engage. There's all your daughter's assessment results will become visible there, assessment dates as well, so if you want to make sure that you are aware of when assessments are coming up, then please do have a look on there. Upcoming assessments, and then you can help to support your daughter to plan ahead. If you've got family events coming up, you've got a birthday party or something that's going to take some time in the coming week, as Claire said, by looking at these assessment dates, getting ahead of the game and making sure that you've helped your daughter really block out some time and feel confident going into the week ahead that she's going to be able to get everything done, reduces the levels of anxiety, and certainly helps make your lives a bit more comfortable too when you haven't got a frantic daughter at home staying up late at night getting cranky because she didn't have enough time to get that assessment completed or whatever study might have been. Tuesday 4th of June we have our Year 9 to 12 parent teacher daughter interviews. That's all day. For our boarders we actually also have, as well as that evening, we also have a day at the beginning of term 2. But for our day students, that happens after the long weekend in June, following their exams, so that we can talk together about how the exams have gone, what the results show, and any suggestions for improvement. So we make sure that we've got those results before that interview, and we can talk about that, because that is important information. Obviously, the interim report will come out at the end of this term, and then semester reports come out in term 2 and term 4. And if you have any concerns, please contact the subject teacher or the dean by email. Just if you've got see any patterns developing, or you're concerned maybe your daughter's been unwell and therefore her results have perhaps shown a bit of a dip, please do contact us if your daughter has suffered some ongoing illness. Please make sure you keep us in the loop in terms of documentation information, because that really does help us support your daughter so that we can help her to get back on track if she needs to, or we can also take that into account when we look at our marks and our grading at the end of the semester. So please do let us know about that. We need to work together for that. Some points there about study. As Claire mentioned earlier, girls should be doing up to 3 hours per night. Now, of course, Friday nights, they need a night off. Weekends, they may be doing a little bit longer on one day and maybe not doing any on another day. So We need to still be flexible and keep balance, but that's the ballpark. There's a study guide Year 11s have received or will receive, Claire. They received that. Okay, so they're working through their study guide, so feel free to say to your daughter, show me the study guide, let's have a look at what are you doing, what else we could do at home to support you. There's a term planner in the planner so they can map out where their assessments are. There is a format for revision notebooks that we've talked to the girls about in study, where they have their notes, but then at the back they have a problems page. So if there's anything that they're unsure about, they can keep track of those things. So then when they ask their teacher, can you please give me some help at recess or lunchtime, they don't just turn up saying, I don't understand any of it, but they've actually got some specific questions. They can say, oh, can you please help me with this question, I didn't understand it, or can you please go through this part of the content because I wasn't quite sure about that. So having the revision notebook is really helpful, and a problems page to reference when they contact their teachers for assistance. There'll be past exam papers that are made available to them, either online or hard copy as the exams become closer, and online tutorials are also another fabulous resource for the girls to have a look at, some different explanations. So they can be some of those, Khan Academy or other different resources online that they can use just to get a bit of extra assistance sometimes. So there's so many resources online that the girls can use these days, and I'm sure they probably can tell us a few of them that we haven't discovered yet as well. And girls do use each other really, really well for study. Snapchat, I believe, is a really fabulous tool for study. Who knew? And they really love to share. What's your answer to this question? They love collaborating, as we know. They love to ask each other questions and ask for help. So it's quite okay for them to use social media as a study platform. They are often doing that, but then they also need times when they're putting that phone or device away, so they're not having those interruptions. And as we all know, our 8-hour exams and our all assessments are handwritten, so they do need to practice all of those handwriting skills. So being able to turn off the devices and not be typing all the time is a really important thing for them to do as well. So don't be afraid to say to them, please put your laptop away, put your phones away for the next hour and a half or whatever it might be. But it is a thing that they like to collaborate using social media with their study these days, and I think that's a fantastic thing, because that is going to be the way that many universities and workplaces will be operating in the future if they're not already doing that. Here's some dates, and I'm nearly finished. Feel free to ask questions when we get to the end, if you can remember them. The academic dates, obviously our semester 1 exams and workplace learning happens in weeks 4 and 5 of term 2. So that's an important time to have on your calendar, and obviously to be ready for a different pace perhaps, or perhaps to shut down a few things that might need to happen, like there might be part-time work or some other activities that may be able to be put on hold for a couple of weeks there if they're not already happening. Semester 2 exams are in weeks 1 and 2 of term 4. So term 4 holidays are a time when a lot of the girls do want to be able to spend time studying. So please do keep that in mind, so that we're not booking holidays for the whole of those 2 weeks and then find that our daughters are having a meltdown when they've got to come back and do exams. We're happy to negotiate if there's things that are unavoidable. We know that there's weddings, there's fabulous things that do happen, and we can negotiate on those because they're our exams that we set the dates for, but that would be the exception. And then, of course, we have some fabulous things happening with the Year 12 Farewell Day the Year 11s are involved with after those exams. And then we begin the course break and transition interviews. So this is all in term 4. So we look at, we let the girls have a break for a few days after exams, after workplace learning, have a little break, a little rest up. And then we do transition interviews. So that's when we start chatting with your daughters about how they went in their exams, how they've gone overall, the big picture, not just one exam here, one exam there, but just the big picture and what that looks like in terms of predictor data, if that's the pathway they're on, or perhaps any courses they need to have another think about whether they're the right courses for Year 12. And then they come back to school, get their exam or course feedback if they've had some last assessments that needed to be given back and reviewed. And then that's week 3 of term 4, and then we start our new courses for Year 12 in week 4 of term 4. So So that's the 4th of November. There's a lot of 4s there. Week 4, term 4, 4th of November. So that's a really important time for our girls. We need to make sure that they're ready mentally, physically. Obviously, we'll have book lists and things all like that out to you early, so there's new books to buy perhaps. But we do not finish our academic year until the 6th of December. So it's really important that our girls are here right to the end of that time, so that they can maximise their work, their assessments in that last week of term, because we want to test on and assess on that 4 weeks of content that we've delivered. Really making sure our girls are in a good place so they get one assessment out of the way before they even start next year. Helps to make them feel confident coming back, that they've actually made some progress. Some of them decide then to get a head start on their work for Year 12 over the holidays, and it really does set them up well. And part of the reason that we have these excellent results is because of some of these things that we do at Santa Maria. So we have this time built in so that we are making sure you're getting bang for your buck, because obviously your daughters are here right till the end, so they're not finishing school in November, and that we get them really working and starting to think about being a Year 12 student and what that means. We start our leadership positions at this time as well, so girls who are becoming Year 12 leaders have already started by this time, so we're really trying to change that mindset for the girls to say, okay, I'm a Year 12 now, I'm here to make this last 8 or 9 months really count, and so that's why it's really important that our girls are here until the 6th of December. So, I think we're just about there. It's a busy term 4, as you can see, which is another reason why having the ball next year will be great. For our assessment policy, I hope you all received an email from me last week, or week 3 it was, which just highlighted that we have an updated assessment policy. And one of the big areas of focus of this policy is our missed assessments, because it does become problematic having students missing assessments frequently. And it's not necessarily because they don't want to do the assessments. Sometimes they are generally sick, or there is something really that they cannot avoid having to attend, and we're quite understanding of that situation. We just like to be communicating openly so we can be aware, and we can make sure that we support the daughters to, when they do return to do an assessment, that they're in the right place and mentally ready for that. And if they're not, we need to be aware of that as well. We might need to make some accommodations for that. We're quite happy to do that if we understand what's going on. So please do make sure that if your daughter's going to miss an assessment or be absent when an assessment is due, that you contact the teacher, the subject teacher. That requires you to know that there is an assessment. That's the tricky part. This is why looking on Sector Engage is really helpful. You could ask your daughters, that's another idea. Sometimes it works. And the idea is that if you know that your daughter's missing an assessment, then you can then let us know so we can reschedule that assessment for your daughter. It may be at missed assessment time, so after school on a Tuesday or before school on a Thursday, so when she returns, she doesn't miss another lesson after missing maybe 1 or 2 or 3 lessons because of illness. So she's not missing another lesson, getting another lesson behind. We can schedule that out of class time, so she's actually able to get back to class as soon as possible. Also, because then, if it is a medical situation, that we can then follow up and keep that documentation on file. So, if it is something that then means that she can't do the assessment at all, we can then have that evidence to show that we are not going to have that mark in our marks book for that student, for that assessment, because of X, Y, and Z. So that we've got that record, because we do have the authority to have a blanket assessment if a student has if there's a valid reason for that student not being able to do it. Sometimes we have students going off on a state representative team or a competition overseas for 2 or 3 weeks, and it would not make sense to get that student to do the assessment when they return, or doing it too early is not going to also reflect their true ability as well, so it doesn't make sense to get them to do the assessment. Certainly if there's a missed exam, a medical certificate is required. Now, the reason why, and the last 3 points here, are why this is so important. Obviously, first of all, when we submit our grades to SCASA, we are basically saying that the student has completed the coursework. That's 55 hours per unit is actually the number that they give us to complete. So if students are missing large chunks of that, we're unable to honestly say, this is the work that the student has done, this is the grade that they have achieved. So that's really important. So to make sure that we can If we have the evidence for reason why they haven't been able to complete the assessments, then that is absolutely fine, but we do need to have that. Also for validity and fairness of assessments, because some girls get very frustrated when they find that they're always here for their assessment. They've got a bit of a raspy throat, or they've got a headache, or they didn't have a great sleep the night before, but they always turn up and do their assessments. And they may not be at their best, but they do their best, and it may not be the best mark they can get, but they know that somebody else who may not be as sick may not be at school that day, and they get to do another day. Now, it's not just the time that they get extra to study, and especially if the assessment's on a Friday, they get the whole weekend, but also what information is then shared. We talk about academic integrity, and sharing of information, collusion, is something that is, is a challenge, especially in a girls' school. Girls want to help each other, they do, and they want to talk naturally about what was in that assessment. Wasn't that horrible question? They didn't teach us that, which is probably untrue. But naturally, word gets out, and then how's that fair for the girls who all turned up on the day of the assessment, did it at the time they had to do it, compared to somebody else, and they have a real sense of injustice, even though it still won't stop them telling their friends what's in the assessment. But anyway. So validity and fairness. When we give a mark, we want to know that that is the fair mark for that student's work and ability. Also, they may find that if they're, they're hearing about what's in assessment and getting a good mark all the time, they may have a false sense of how much work they've done and what they need to do next to improve. So we want that assessment to be really honest feedback to them about what their capability is at that time in that area of the course, and then what they need to do next. So feedback for learning is really what assessment's all about. So they know where they're at, and also we know where they're at, so that then we can assist them to improve. So the feedback we give on an assessment, when we give our assessment back, needs to be timely. So we don't want to be waiting another 2 weeks to give the assessment back because we haven't been able, we didn't know that the student wasn't going to be returning because they've been sick or something. Students need that assessment with feedback back as soon as possible so they can learn from that and then move on. So this is another reason why it's really important that we work together to make sure that if students unavoidably miss an assessment, that then we can put things into place. And it may be that we still get them to do the assessment, but we moderate that mark, or that they can get them to do the assessment, but we don't include the mark. Just an opportunity for them to see what the work was about so they can be ready when the next assessment of that type comes through, or the exam, they've done that content as well. So if you could please support us with that, that would be really appreciated. And we know that policies don't always cover every single possibility, but we try our best. We've worked with the teachers, the deans. We've looked at what our past policies have been like, other schools' policies as well. And one reality that we have now added into our policy is that a 0 mark is possible, and that's something we haven't necessarily had before. But we have a possibility that a student can achieve a 0 mark if they haven't delivered what they've been required to in the time frame, and we haven't had any reason for that to be justified. I'm sure that won't be happening this year. Okay, so successful partnerships. This is what it's all about. We're all here, teachers, parents, to support your daughters, to get the very best out of them. So having your involvement here tonight, your support here tonight, and ongoing is really, really important. The students' aspirations and their engagement, their proactive nature, being independent and trying to, push themselves is really very important as well. We don't want to put extra pressure on the girls and tell them they have to get an ATAR of 99.75, or that they have to, get a certificate in 3 different courses or anything like that. But we want to be realistic about where the girls are at and make sure that they are setting high goals for themselves. So if your daughter doesn't know what she wants to do when she leaves school, that's absolutely fine. As long as she wants to be the best she can be at whatever she's doing now. Because who knows what she'll be in the future. We've got a long way ahead. But if she can be the best she can be, if she can raise her mark in English from a 55% to a 60%, that's a big improvement. It doesn't matter, as long as she's continually reviewing where she's at and setting goals and then doing what it takes to improve and to reach those goals. That's the most important thing, because we don't know where your daughters are going to be in 10, 15, 20 years. But we know we want them to be resilient, we know we want them to be high achievers in terms of setting high goals and working towards them, and that's all that we really need. So working with teachers, we know that we have some very good teachers at Santa Maria College. Our results show that. A lot of feedback from parents, thankfully, thank you for that, does reflect that as well. And we know that our teachers work really hard to improve, to learn, to work collaboratively, and not just as a school here, but they work in networks outside the school with SCASA, with a lot of other groups outside to try and improve their pedagogy, their classroom practices, and really cater for your daughters as best they can. So we really appreciate the teachers, we really appreciate your efforts, and we certainly appreciate your daughters because they are beautiful and they really make coming and working at Santa a joy. And I'm not sugarcoating that. It really is wonderful to come here every day. I've been here quite a long time now, and I never get sick of turning up to work at Santa Maria. So I'm very, very fortunate. There's some other things that might help inspire your girls and get them excited about the future. Career Centre has guest speakers. They have breakfast and lunch times. There's a newsletter that goes out regularly to the girls to give them some insights to guest speakers that they may be able to access and come along and hear, because we often find it's the mentoring and having somebody who you look up to that makes a big difference to the girls in terms of, I'd like to be like that, I'd like to achieve those sorts of things when I get older as well. So if you hear about those things, if there's a particular career area that you think, oh, that would be a great thing, or even if you come across somebody who you think would be a wonderful guest speaker for our girls to inspire them in any field, please let us know, because we want to get our girls really excited about the future, and we know that sometimes having us stand up and talk to them is not that exciting, apparently. I don't know why, I can't imagine why, because they do want to find a little connection with somebody who's not mum or not the teacher, not dad. They want somebody else. So if you know of somebody, please let us know. Useful contacts. I'm sure that you would be aware that email is usually the best way to contact teachers, because we're in and out of classrooms every day, and it's hard to catch us by phone. And if you send us an email, we'll endeavour to get back to it within 24 hours, because that's our turnaround time. We may not be able to solve the problem, but we can certainly say, thank you for letting me know, I'll get onto this and I'll get back to you tomorrow or by Wednesday or whatever the day might be, so that you know that we're aware of that. And keeping us in the loop is so important as well. We try to do that for you as well. So if there's anybody there that you think, oh yes, I think I might need to contact that person next week, please just make a little note. Subject teachers are always a great person to contact first. Homeroom teacher as well for any pastoral issues. And then of course Claire, Mary-Ann Hughes, our Head of Careers and Access, and myself as well, if it's about courses or moving forward into next year and beyond as well. So I think that's everything. Cool, look at that, 8 o'clock. Perfect. Thank you everybody for your time tonight. I know there was a lot of information there. Feel free to go away and think, okay, I'm going to look at 2 or 3 of those slides if there's something there of interest. Maybe even sit down and have a look through it with some of your daughters if you feel that they might not be aware of some of those points. We are rolling this out to the students as well, but the more people who know this stuff, the better, because then you can have conversations at home. And if there's any feedback or anything you'd like to give about tonight or about other academic matters, please feel free to send through an email to myself or Claire, or perhaps to just stay around and ask a quick question or whatever at the end of tonight. Were there any questions that you think might pertain to everybody that you'd like to ask at this stage, or everybody happy to get home to the couch? I'm happy to. Claire, was there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I don't think so, but just to thank everyone for coming tonight. I know it's really hard in the middle of the week to come out, but I do appreciate your attendance tonight, and your girls know that my door is always open and they can flow in and out as they do on a regular basis, but encourage them just to be proactive with their studies and to talk to you, as Simone said. Have that conversation with them in that time. What's on your agenda tomorrow? How are you going? How are things working out for you? How can I support you? And do you need some extra help? And that way everybody is in the same ballpark and everybody is aware of what their needs are. And as Simone said, they are absolutely gorgeous girls. I've had a lot of fun with them. They're very, very warm and compassionate young women, and I think that bodes well for the future, because they're just lovely, lovely young women to work with, and I really do enjoy my job as well. So, yes, contact me if you need me. Very happy to help.
And I just want to say just one last thing. This year, Year 11 is all about getting good work habits and good practices to really prepare them for next year. So It might not be 100% perfect this year, and that's absolutely fine. We do take year 11 very seriously, but it doesn't have to be the penultimate year, because next year is where we're really looking towards reaping the rewards of this year's hard slog, because it is a hard slog sometimes. We really want the girls to become independent and to magnify their strengths, and that's what we're working on at the moment. And when they work through the exam period, they will learn from that. It might not be perfect. They might come out of it thinking, wow, that was not my best. That's okay, because we're building that reflection. I hope you'll build in that reflection time at home as well, to help the girls really identify what they could do better for the end of the year, the second half of the year. But every day, if they're working and thinking about that, then we'll only get better as the year progresses. So thank you very much, and good luck.
Yes, sure can. So I'm just checking this thing. Excuse me, don't mind. We need to get into. Pull that down. Here we go. Yeah, there we go. Now we need to go that, I think, and we need to go.
Got to save it.
Where is it? Here.